Weeks after an underground dance party in Provo and days away from an influx of students, city leaders debated the need for a mask mandate.
Don't have the resources to respond to the calls that the city doesn't want to enforce in the first place.
What the city decided and what a survey showed the people wanted.
The effects of COVID-19 in younger children versus adults and the inconsistent information parents are finding online. What a leading doctor at Primary Children's Hospital has to say.
As the smoke moves into Utah, how's it impacting our air quality? Plus, more chances at afternoon showers. I've got those details coming up.
Temporary drive-in movie theaters are popping up all around Utah, and it's a great way to catch a show during COVID-19. But what about the permanent drive-ins?
Because they can't replicate the feel of being here.
We'll show you what we found.
Live from Fox 13 Studios, this is Fox 13 News at 9.
First on Fox 13, the Provo City Council has approved a resolution encouraging masks.
Now, they did stop just short of approving a mask mandate tonight. This all comes ahead of thousands of college students returning back for fall semester.
Fox 13's Haley Higgins joins us from Provo City Hall tonight. Haley.
Yeah, well, this resolution does go on the books, but it does not really have the teeth that a mask mandate would have. That is not off the table yet. City council members are really concerned about what college students do when they are off campus. Nearly 2 weeks after hundreds of college-age students gathered in an underground dance party free of masks or social distancing, the Provo City Council discusses the need for a mask mandate.
We are going to be a very different population in the next week.
Concerned about significant growth of COVID-19 off of college campuses this fall, some city council members expressed the need for the mask mandate. It goes against the wishes of the mayor and police chief.
Don't have the resources to respond to the calls that the city doesn't want to enforce in the first place.
A city survey found 60% of Provo residents would support a mask mandate.
I think it is a good idea. I think it's very important to keep from spreading COVID. I think it would be a good mandatory precaution.
Yet about 20% argue it is not a good idea.
I think that people should be able to choose whether or not they wear a mask or not in public.
A study by BYU projected growth in the community without a mask mandate. A vote on the mask mandate is scheduled for Tuesday. If it is approved, it will be up to the mayor to put in the guidebooks on how to enforce it. Reporting live in Provo, Haley Higgins, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Thanks, Haley. It was a day of high case counts, 461 new cases of COVID-19 today. This now brings Utah's total to 47,982. The rolling 7-day average is 364 cases per day. The percent of positive tests stands at 8.8%. The Utah Department of Health is reporting 4 more deaths from the virus today. 3 from Salt Lake County, 1 from Utah County. The statewide total death toll is now 381.
If you've been tested for COVID-19, you know how uncomfortable it is. The nasal swab can be very painful. A new University of Utah Health and ARUP study may have a solution for that. They found that saliva testing is just as effective as traditional nasal testing for the virus. And the new saliva test is going to make things easier for both patients and healthcare workers.
The providers helping to collect the saliva sample may not need to wear all the heavy personal protective equipment that we have them wear for the deeper sampling.
U of U Health says that's because the saliva test is less likely to expose healthcare workers to the virus, which can be transmitted through droplets in the air. ARUP and University of Utah Health are discussing plans to begin offering the COVID-19 saliva test at university clinics. As parents have prepared to send students back to school, there has been a dizzying amount of information about the way COVID-19 might affect children differently than adults.
And Bob, there are still so many questions. Fox 13's Adam Herbets is at Jordan Hills Elementary School after speaking to doctors, students, and parents about what information they should rely on. Adam, what did you find out?
Yeah, Bob Kelly, there is a lot of research going on right now, a lot of arguments and a lot of conflicting reports about the ways COVID-19 might affect children. That's why doctors say it's important to keep an open mind. Don't just pay attention to the studies that align with your own personal beliefs.
Was really fatigued and had like a headache.
It was tough for me. I cried a few times and it was just rough.
10-year-old Ryder Downey remembers when his mom was diagnosed with COVID-19. He says it was sad when school shut down last year and it was scary to learn about a deadly virus in his own home.
To watch him just not be him, it was really, really hard.
Did you get sick?
No, I don't think so.
He doesn't think so, but his mom thinks there's a chance, especially after reading studies that indicate kids usually have fewer symptoms or are sometimes asymptomatic.
Yeah, the conflicting studies is really hard because you really don't know what to believe.
It's not that children don't get it, or that they can get pretty sick from it too.
Dr. Neil Davis is one of the leading pediatricians in Utah. He says even though kids are sometimes less symptomatic, it's too early to say whether they spread the virus or bring it home any differently than an adult.
I have seen, honestly, studies that go back and forth on that question. That is generally more of a behavioral phenomenon.
He says the other difficult thing for him personally is watching people argue, sometimes scream at each other because of something they read online. He says discussion is important, but so is listening.
The evidence is so compelling and clear.
Especially when it comes to the most obvious precautions that help every age group. Washing hands, social distancing, and wearing a mask.
I think school's going to be a little bit different, but I mean, we're going back to school, so yeah, I'm happy.
Dr. Davis says it is especially important talking and listening when it comes to that relationship you have with your doctor. That's why keep talking, keep that dialogue open, and don't just pay attention to specific things you see on the internet. We're live in West Jordan. Adam Herbets, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Well, obviously, Adam's light went out there, but he kept reporting just the same. We've got smoke in the air out there tonight, Allison.
I know, unfortunately, but it does make for some pretty sunrises and sunsets. You kind of get the more orangey colors in the sky. You don't love breathing it, right? But I wanted to show you guys our most recent smoke analysis because we are starting to see some more wildfire move into our state. So it's worse than it was when we last met during the 5 p.m. hour. So we're starting to see that smoke move into Utah. This will continue to get worse. As you wake up tomorrow morning, you'll certainly notice a difference with the smoky conditions out across the state. So especially along the Wasatch Front. We will have temperatures over the next couple of days that end up being pretty hot as well. So as we go ahead and zoom in for you guys on that smoke analysis, just giving you kind of a better idea of where we're seeing that smoke right now. The next graphic that I have for you guys shows a live view on our Intermountain Cam. So it's 85 degrees here in Salt Lake City. Most temperatures here across the state in the mid 80s. Overnight we will cool a little bit, but we wake up to smoke tomorrow and more chances for showers and thunderstorms. Plus we set a lot of records today. I'll have all those details coming up.
Thanks, Allison. The city of Cottonwood Heights is now withdrawing charges against a city council member connected to a protest back on August 2nd. Natalie Bruce was facing one count of interference with a peace officer making a lawful arrest after participating in the protest against police brutality. But city leaders have announced they're now withdrawing the charges to avoid any potential conflict of interest. Prosecution will now be referred to an undetermined independent prosecutor who is unaffiliated with Cottonwood Heights.
Utah Senator Mike Lee is apologizing for making light of steps being taken to protect students returning to the classroom. Last night, he posted this to his professional Twitter page and another more critical version to his personal Facebook page. It asks whether using shields around student desks looks like a, quote, fun way to learn. Some people called the shields an extreme or redundant step with masks and social distancing, but the vast majority said Senator Lee's post mocks the teacher, school, and the effort to protect students in those classrooms. Senator Lee has taken down both the tweet and the Facebook post. He issued an apology on all his social media platforms today, admitting he showed disrespect to those in the classroom, which he says was not his intention.
Coming up on Fox 13 News at 9.
We were immediately labeled as a white or a racist organization without even anyone talking to me.
We believe they're a terrorist organization.
A controversial Facebook group demanding answers after being removed from Facebook. Why Utah citizens' alarm won't stay silent, and why others hope they stay shut down for good.
As local lawmakers come together for a special session to address COVID-19, the governor makes a bold move.
There are legitimate issues as far as what are the powers and when you have a sustained long-term emergency like a pandemic.
What Governor Herbert is doing to keep a vital resource for our state's rebound alive.
Welcome back, everyone. A big headline coming from the special session today was the state of emergency.
Governor Herbert will issue a new state of emergency for COVID-19 at midnight tonight. If not, Utah could lose hundreds of millions of dollars in federal relief funds. And he may have to redeclare an emergency every 30 days if state lawmakers don't take action.
I don't know what's going to happen in 30 days. There are legitimate issues as far as what are the powers and when you have a sustained long-term emergency like a pandemic. There's also the responsibility the legislature has to make policy.
Well, here's a quick look at some of the 21 bills discussed in the special session today. One expanded voting options, but removed a provision to let the lieutenant governor suspend in-person voting. Lawmakers battled over who is qualified to lead the Department of Health. A bill lowered the requirements for the executive director. Lawmakers even passed a liquor bill to allow it to be sold at the new Salt Lake City airport. However, they did not address curbside alcohol service that bars and restaurants have been asking for. The bills that passed now go to the governor's office for his signature or veto.
One of the most powerful figures in Utah politics is leaving Governor Herbert's administration. The legislature gave a standing ovation to Kristen Cox today, the head of the governor's Office of Management and Budget. She's one of those responsible for how your tax dollars are managed and spent, including during the COVID-19 pandemic. Cox has served in the post since 2012 and was recognized for her work today.
You and I can have a good yell at each other and tell each other what we really think, but we always end up friends at the end. So we appreciate you, wish you luck in your future endeavors, and it's just been a real pleasure working shoulder to shoulder with you.
The governor says Cox is an inspiration and is responsible for increasing government efficiency by 32%. She has not said where she plans to go next.
Job well done. The St. George City Council appointed a veteran officer as their new chief of police. There he is. Kyle Whitehead will now be the city's 29th chief of police. He started with the department in 1999. He's been a lifelong resident of St. George. This comes after Chief Rich Farnsworth retired earlier this year.
If you're in the mood for a movie and a beer, you're in luck. Brewvies in Salt Lake will reopen tomorrow. You can see Russell Crowe in his new movie, Unhinged, the sci-fi hit Inception, or the new action film, The Tax Collector. You can also pick up a slice of pizza and a draft pint for only $5.
Well, listen to this. The Bison Roundup at Antelope Island. It's been a tradition for 34 years, but there are some major changes coming this year. Members of the public will not be able to participate. I know this is tradition for some people, but this year you'll have to take a year off. There will also be no vendors, music, or other festivities. This is all to avoid crowds in the midst of the pandemic, of course. Antelope Island State Park officials say the park will remain open, however, during the event. It's expected to happen sometime in October. However, they have not said exactly when. Still ahead, a big construction project in Orem could delay your commute this weekend. What you need to know before you hit the road.
Plus, San Juan County is 10.5 times larger than Salt Lake County, with 75 times fewer people. Coming up, the plan to get the internet to 3,000 children over 7,000 square miles. UDOT crews are working on a pedestrian bridge that crosses I-15 connecting Utah Valley University with the Front Runner Station in Orem this weekend. When it's complete, pedestrians and cyclists will be able to cross safely to and from campus. Until now, commuters have had to take a bus from the train to campus or walk across that busy interchange.
They'll be able to get off the train, either walk up the stairs, or there is going to be an elevator on both ends.
Because of the project, I-15 in both directions at this location will close between University Parkway and 800 North on Saturday at 10:30 p.m. until Sunday morning at 10. The $37 million project should be finished by January.
The Utah House and Senate passed a giant spending bill today, distributing CARES Act money, and a small part of it may change the lives of hundreds of Utah students in a big way. About 1,200 students in the San Juan County School District live on the Navajo Reservation. Now, many of them do not have access to the internet except through limited cell phone service. The COVID-19 pandemic made the internet a critical part of learning, so the San Juan School District came up with a plan. With money approved today, they're setting up a local area network or LAN that will beam a strong signal through repeaters all across the region.
Never did I imagine that these would be the things that we would be wrestling with, but they're good things to wrestle with.
Yeah, this does sound like a good thing. The network will be fast enough to stream video, but it will be filtered to emphasize education, which means Netflix and things like that won't be happening.
Coming up after the break.
Today we were shut down by Facebook.
A group that has shown up to anti-police protests with weapons has been kicked off of Facebook along with thousands of others.
Talk about oppression. That's pretty oppressed if you think about it. We don't get to say what we want to say.
But is it constitutional? Reaction to the social media giant's new policy.
COVID-19 is helping revive drive-in movie theaters, from pop-up shops to permanent theaters that survive the test of time. How the demand is being met, coming up.
Live from Fox 13 Studios, this is Fox 13 News at 9.
Today we were shut down by Facebook, so this will be a day that will live in infamy.
That is the founder of Utah Citizens Alarm, an armed group that shows up at anti-police protests and had nearly 20,000 members on Facebook until that social media giant removed them today. In fact, Facebook has removed more than 1,000 groups from their platform and more than 10,000 accounts from Instagram after announcing a new policy. Fox 13's Aaron Cox spoke with members and the founder of that group and shows us what happened.
Each time Casey Robertson tries to access his Facebook group, Utah Citizens Alarm, this is what shows up on his screen.
It's just kind of this surreal feeling, especially as information started to roll in, that it wasn't just us.
In a blog post, Facebook administrators wrote they were taking action against Facebook pages, groups, and Instagram accounts tied to offline anarchist groups that support violent acts amidst protests, U.S.-based militia organizations, and QAnon. So far, 790 pages tied to QAnon have been removed. 980 groups identifying with Antifa are gone.
Right off the bat, we were immediately labeled as a white or a racist organization without even anyone talking to me or looking or asking any questions.
At all of the protests they have attended, Robertson says UCA's mission has been to maintain the peace.
We are totally for peaceful protests.
The UCA Facebook group was created 7 weeks ago following the Provo protests that turned violent, and they've shown up at numerous Black Lives Matter protests ever since.
We believe they are a terrorist organization.
Lex Scott, founder of Black Lives Matter in Utah, says having UCA show up armed at protests incites violence.
I saw a girl crying at the last protest. She was afraid. It's just them being there is unneeded.
Having their Facebook page removed for these folks, though, felt like losing their voices.
Talk about oppression. That's pretty oppressed if you think about it. We don't get to say what we want to say.
Attorney David Raymond has practiced law focusing on media and First Amendment rights for 21 years.
This is a common misconception that the First Amendment somehow guarantees someone a right to say anything to anyone in any forum. The First Amendment is a restraint on the power of government.
And even though what Facebook is doing may seem totally unfair to some, Raymond says is still constitutional.
They would be considered private property. So the analogy would be someone invites you into their house and they say, I don't want to talk about politics. And if you start talking about politics, they can ask you to leave. That doesn't violate your First Amendment right.
Just because Facebook kicked us off does not mean that we're finished. In fact, we are solid, we're strong.
UCA plans to move forward with a planned protest this weekend. In Salt Lake County, Aaron Cox, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Listen to this. More drive-in movie theaters are popping up all across the state. And tonight, the Utah Film Center is kicking off their series of temporary drive-ins. Sounds fun. Fox 13's Sydney Glenn joins us from Midvale. Sydney.
Kelly, this certainly is fun. Normally, this is the parking lot of the Belgian Waffle and Omelette Inn. Tonight, it's a movie theater. You can see people out here in their cars, just like the olden times, right? Just like not that long ago when this was the way people watched their movies. So it really just got us to thinking, what about those actual drive-ins, the few that are still out there? Erta, Utah, population 4,600. Just a few stoplights, some farmland, highway, and this. The Motorview Theater lit up this single screen for the first time in the 1940s.
It's just been in the family for so long, it's what we do.
Mike Booth started working here when he was 12. He's watched things change.
The theater got a little bit smaller when the highway expanded.
As the parking lot shrunk, the projector room got more expensive.
We used to be film theater, 35mm theater, now we're digital.
Who comes to sit, turn on their radio and watch has changed too, Mike says.
So this is the memories of a 12-year-old. A lot busier, and I don't know, it was a lot more adults, I think.
But some things can't change, no matter the development or the year.
The experience of being outside and watching the movies under the stars, it's just different, that nostalgia.
When you walk inside to grab some popcorn or $2 candy bars, you instantly feel that nostalgia, from the retro hot dog and popcorn signs to the wood paneling.
Small popcorn in there, yeah.
But that nostalgia isn't always enough, Mike admits, for drive-ins to survive.
The problems they face are the development around them and finding a next generation to take over.
In the 1950s, drive-inmovies.com reports there were about 4,000 drive-in movie theaters across the U.S. Today, there are only about 330. But that's if you don't count these guys, the new COVID-19 inspired pop-up shops.
It's kind of interesting to see it. We're watching it from afar.
As parking lots become temporary theaters, Mike looks at his own place, the real deal.
Considering how it impacts us, but it really also doesn't impact us because they can't replicate the feel of being here.
In a small town, in a dirt lot, sits the screen that's like home for Mike.
Out of all the jobs I've had, this one's the only one I've loved.
Pretty neat there. We have more information on some of those actual drive-in theaters, plus pop-up ones like this one over on our website, fox13now.com. In Midvale, Sydney Glenn, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Thanks so much, Sydney. Well, hey guys, I'm meteorologist Allison Krogan. I am tracking smoke that's moving into our state. It's a little bit worse than it was a few hours ago. You've probably noticed it. A hazy sunset. It was a beautiful sunset though, but we've got a lot of fires burning over in California, through Nevada, up into Idaho, really across the entire region, but we're mostly being impacted in the western third of Utah right now and then southern Utah. Now, the last few days, right at the Colorado border near Moab, that's where we were having our problems as we wrapped up last week for our smoke analysis. But right now here across the state, I do think it's going to get worse as we wake up tomorrow morning. As of right now, our ozone's really not that bad though. So looking at our air quality for almost all of our counties, at least the ones that are registering something right now, we do have good air quality here across northern Utah. Nothing showing up currently. It's not available for Box Elder County and also for Weber County. As we look at our record high temperatures today, we ended up setting quite a few records. Here's what I want to point out to you guys. Hanksville 105, for Kanab 103, Cedar City another day of triple digits. So it's been quite the ride for you guys this week. Spanish Fork tying the record of 98. For Ogden, 97, for Alpine, 96. And then for Salt Lake City, I do want to point out to you guys that our official reading for our Salt Lake temperatures, historically speaking, all of our information for our data, that's because of the readings, the weather system at the National Weather Service, so pretty much right near the airport. But downtown set a record today. Now here in Salt Lake, our official temperature for the day is what's registered at the airport, which was 98 degrees. And that's where our record for today is 103. So we did set a record in Salt Lake today, just not the official one. I hope that made some sense. So our sun set at 8:18 tonight. It's going to rise tomorrow morning a little after 6:30 a.m. So just about 6:45 a.m. We are above average again today. Pretty comfortable right now at 83 for Salt Lake, for Ogden 81 degrees, and for Provo 79. We did have a few showers and thunderstorms that developed today, had quite a bit of lightning up towards Rock Springs. I think we're going to have that chance for showers and thunderstorms the next couple of afternoons, mostly along the highest terrain, but I think the haze will be the most noticeable to you guys. For tomorrow, here's what you need to know. An excessive heat warning will continue for Utah's Dixie and then down towards Lake Powell plus Zion National Park. And then over in Nevada, an air quality warning. So that'll be until Friday at 9:45 a.m. That's the kind of yellowish beige color that you're seeing. And then also the gray, that is a dense smoke advisory. So just not ideal. We will have that impacting our state. We're going to temperatures tomorrow morning that are pretty comfy as you wake up, but most of us right now around 80 degrees. But tomorrow morning here in Salt Lake, we'll cool a few more degrees. So it'll be about 70 degrees as you wake up, and then we'll have those temperatures close to 90. So drought monitor, still extreme for western Utah. Temperatures tomorrow morning will be 60s and 70s. For tomorrow afternoon, around 100 degrees again. And then for St. George, you're close to 110 the next few days, and then 105 through the rest of your 7-day forecast. And for Salt Lake City, close to 100 degrees through Tuesday, and then mid-90s starting next Wednesday.
Will Mike Conley be available for the Jazz in Game 3? We'll hear from the Jazz coming up in sports. And who's the BYU starting quarterback? Offensive coordinator Jeff Grimes was asked that question, and he gave an answer after today's final scrimmage. The Utah Jazz and Denver Nuggets will play Game 3 of their NBA playoff series tomorrow. The question is, will Mike Conley be cleared to play? Of course, the Jazz want Conley back as soon as possible. He is averaging 18 points per game in the NBA restart. He had to be quarantined for 4 days after leaving the NBA bubble to be with his family for the birth of his son. But the Jazz don't expect any rust from Mike when he does return.
I don't think that's even a question or an issue. He's only been out for, a few days, so I don't think there's any reintegration to be had. It's like being out a quarter for 6 minutes. Can't wait to have him back. Excited to have a guy that's so impactful and such a good player and such a big part of what we do.
Throughout the whole bubble experience, the 8 games that we had, Mike has been playing the best basketball I've seen him play. I really feel like he's in a great place. He has a lot of experience. He knows how to create for himself and for his teammates. So I think it can only be a positive for us to have him back.
The BYU football team had their final scrimmage of fall camp today at LaVell Edwards Stadium before they turn all their focus on the season opener against Navy. Starting jobs still up for grabs, including at quarterback. But the coaching staff will not tell us if it's Zach Wilson, Jaron Hall, or Bailey Romney.
No, we're not ready to say anything yet. I think it's every day you gain more information, and certainly we're gaining more information about those guys every day. All the guys are progressing, and I know it's not much information, but they're all getting better. And I think the experience that we have there is certainly showing in practice. They're all making progress every day, and so you probably won't hear much else until we're ready to announce something.
Thursday night football, Timpview at American Fork. Defense controlled the game early on. Timpview's Puna Alatani with the interception. The Cavemen's defense and special teams set up touchdowns in the second quarter. Maddox Madsen keeps it and scores. Put American Fork up 7-0. Then later in the second quarter, Spike Adams runs it in from 12 yards out. American Fork beat Timpview 31-21. Guys, there'll be 51 more games tomorrow all across the state.
Wow, quite the lineup. You'll have highlights for all of them, Jeff?
Yeah, you're going to all of them, aren't you, Jeff?
He'll get to as many as he can. Thanks for being with us, everyone.
Stay tuned. Modern Family comes up next.